Okay, welcome to the reading of Republic Act 11525. Ang video ito ay intended po lamang sa mga taong walang oras magbasa, ngunit nais malaman kung anong nilalaman ng Republic Act 11525. Okay. Republic of the Philippines, Congress of the Philippines, Metro Manila, 18th Congress, Second Regular Session, began and held in Metro Manila on Monday, the 27th day of July, 2020. Republic Act number 11525. An act establishing the Coronavirus Disease 2019 or COVID-19 vaccination program, expediting the Vacs procurement and administration process, providing funds, therefore, and for other purposes. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the Philippines in Congress assembled. Section 1. Short title. This act shall be known and cited as COVID-19 Vaccination Program Act of 2021. Section 2. Declaration of Policy. It is hereby declared the policy of the state to adopt an integrated approach to health development, which shall endeavor to make essential social services available to all people at an affordable cost. For this reason, the state shall undertake a COVID-19 vaccination program with the following objectives. Address the adverse impact of COVID-19 through government and administration. Hindi siya naka-centralize. Through the procurement and administration of safe and effective COVID vacs by the national government through the Department of Health and the National Task Force Against COVID-19 or NTF and other duly constituted authorities and instrumentalities. B. Source and procure through the DOH and the NTF, either through themselves jointly or in cooperation with any national government agency or instrumentality or local government unit. Safe and effective. GovID 19 Vacs. Letter C. Recognize the experimental nature of COVID-19 vacs available in the market and compensate any serious adverse effects arising from the use of COVID-19 vacs experienced by people inoculated through the COVID-19 vaccination program. 3D. Creation of COVID-19 National Vacs Indemnity Fund to be administered by the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation or PhilHealth to compensate persons encountering SAE pursuant to the preceding paragraph. Section 3. Procurement of GovID 19, Vacs and ancillary supplies and services. Notwithstanding any law to the contrary, the DOH and the NTF, either through themselves, jointly, or in cooperation with any national government agency or instrumentality or LGU, are authorized to procure COF ID 19 Vacs, including ancillary supplies and services necessary for their storage, transport, deployment, and administration through negotiated procurement under emergency cases pursuant to Section 53B of Republic Act Number 9184 and Section 53.2 of the 2016 Revised Implementing Rules and Regulations of Republic Act Number 9184, provided that the procurement of GovID 19 Vacs, the DOH and the NTF shall be authorized to negotiate and approve the terms and conditions thereof in behalf of LGUs and other procuring entities, including but not limited to the price and payment terms, making sure that there is price uniformity and to prevent price competition. Provided further that after the negotiations by the DOH and the NTF, the LGUs and other procuring entities are authorized to enter into supply agreement, advance market commitment, advance payment, research investment, purchase order, similar any similar arrangement or other requirements as may be identified by the DOH and the NTF. Provided finally that an LGU is authorized to directly procure ancillary supplies and services necessary for the storage, transport, deployment, and administrative of COF ID 19 Vacs through negotiated procurement under emergency cases prescribed under this section. Section 338 of Republic Act Number 7160 as amended, otherwise known as the Local Government Code of 1991. Section 88 of Presidential Decree Number 1445 as amended, otherwise known as the Government Auditing Code of the Philippines, and any law to the contrary, notwithstanding provinces, cities, and municipalities may advance payment if required by the supplier, manufacturer, or distributor, provided that the authority to make advance payment shall be for the procurement of Gov ID 19 Vacs and to secure other goods and services necessary for their storage, transport, deployment, and other administration. Provided further that the deployment of VACs in every province, city, and municipality must be in accordance with the criteria set by the Interim National Immunization Technical Advisory Group or NITAG, provided finally that this section shall have retroactive application from January 1, 2021. Section 4. Procurement and Administration of Gov ID 19, VACs, and ancillary supplies and services by local government units. Provinces, Cities and municipalities may procure only in cooperation with the DOH and the NTF through a multi-party agreement which shall include the DOH and the relevant suppliers of COV-ID 19 Vacs, provided that these LGUs shall procure no more than 75% of their target population for vaccination, provided further that the 75% cap may be adjusted by the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Disease when there is sufficient supply of vax as determined by DOH and the NTF, provided furthermore that the provision on advance payment as provided in the preceding section shall also apply to procurement of COV-ID 19 vax and ancillary supplies and services, provided, however, that LGUs may directly accept donations of FDA authorized and cleared ID 19 vax subject to the guidelines and reportorial sorry reportorial requirement of the DOH and the NTF, provided finally that this section shall have retroactive applications from January 1, 2021. If the procurement of vax is funded by national government, the LGU shall comply with the science and evidence-based terms and conditions of deployment, prioritizing the needs of the following groups: healthcare workers, senior citizens, persons with comorbidities, frontline personnel in essential services, including uniformed personnel and teachers, and indigent population, provided that an LGU is authorized to directly procure ancillary supplies and services necessary for the storage, transport, deployment, and administration of COVID-ID 19 Vax through negotiated procurement under emergency cases prescribed under this section. For LGU funded vax, the inoculation order must at all times be science evidence based, prioritizing the needs of the following special groups: frontline workers in health facilities, senior citizens, and the indigent persons, provided that the local health officials shall be allowed to formulate their own vax recipient list and implement their own operational procedures in accordance with the national policies and procedures issued by the DOH if it will be expedite and enhance the efficiency of the inoculation process and prevent the spoilage of vax. To ensure the transparency, the LGU shall also submit to the DOH a master list of the names and profiles of the resident who were vaccinated under the COVID-ID 19 vaccination program, subject to the provision of the Data Privacy Act. Section 5. Procurement and administration of COVID-ID 19 vax by private entities. Private entities may procure COVID-ID 19 vax only in cooperation with the DOH and the NTF through a multi-party agreement which shall include the DOH and the relevant supplier of COVID-ID vax. Any such vax supplies or services procured by private entities shall be for the sole and exclusive use of such companies without prejudice to the multi-party agreement, provided that the priority in the inoculation shall be given to its healthcare workers, senior citizens, economic frontliners, and essential workers. Provided further that the chief medical officers of private entities shall be allowed to formulate their own vacs recipient list and implement their own operational procedures in accordance with the national policies and procedures issued by the DOH if it will be expedite and enhance the efficiency of the inoculation process and prevent the spoilage of vacs. Provided finally that this section shall have retroactive application from November 1, 2020. With respect to international humanitarian organizations such as Red Cross Movement, particularly the Philippine Red Cross, a voluntary, independent, and autonomous non-governmental society auxiliary to the authorities of the Republic of the Philippines in the humanitarian field as set forth in Republic Act number 10072, known as the Philippine Red Cross Act of 2009, may procure COV ID 19 vacs, provided that the vacs procured shall be for the use of individuals consistent with the priority list set, wherein for every one vax, but one vax shall be donated to the vulnerable and indigent. The DOH, NTF, LGUs, and private entities procuring COV ID 19 vax may partner with the Philippine Red Cross in the administration or distribution and inoculation of the vax. Section 6. Transparency and accountability in COV ID 19 Vax procurement. The national government, as well as LGUs, private entities, and the Philippine Red Cross, may only procure COV ID 19 vacs that are registered with the Philippine Food and Drug Administration, as evidenced by a valid certificate of product registration or which possesses an emergency use authorization. For purpose of transparency, the following information shall be posted in a conspicuous place of the procuring entity and in the Government Procurement Policy Board online portal within 30 days after award of execution of definitive agreement or after the effectivity of this act, whichever is applicable. A. Approved budget for the contract. B. Name and details of the COF ID 19 vacs or ancillary service or supplies. C. Name of the supplier, manufacturer, or distributor, and D. Amount of contract as awarded. Section 7. Authority to make recommendations based on preliminary data from Phase 3 clinical trials. Notwithstanding any law to the contrary, the Health Technology Assessment Council shall have the authority to make recommendations to the DOH on COV ID 19 based on preliminary data from the Phase 3 clinical trials under the World Health Organization's recommendations in the absence of the completed Phase 3 and Phase 4 clinical trials, provided that the COV ID-19 Vacs manufacturer has been issued an EUA by the FDA. Provided further that the authority granted to the HTAC herein shall only be valid for as long as the EUA issued by the FDA is in effect, such that in the event of revocation or cancellation thereof by the FDA Director General, the HTA process shall be terminated regardless of stage, and if it has been completed, the results shall be set aside. Section 8. Immunity from liability. Notwithstanding any law to the contrary, public officials and employees, contractors, manufacturers, volunteers, and representatives of duly authorized private entities who are duly authorized to carry out and are actually carrying out the COV ID-19 Vacs in nation program shall be immune from suit and liability under Philippine laws with respect to all claims arising out of, related to, or resulting from the administration or use of a COV ID-19 Vacs under the COV ID-19 Vacs in Nation program, except arising from willful misconduct and gross negligence. Section 9. Pharmacists and midwives as vaccinators. Notwithstanding the provision of Section 4G of Republic Act Number 10918, otherwise known as the Philippine Pharmacy Act, and Section 23 of Republic Act Number 7392, otherwise known as the Philippine Midwifery Act of 1992, and in furtherance of COV ID-19 vaccination program, licensed pharmacists and midwives who are duly trained by the DOH may administer COV ID-19 Vacs that are registered with the FDA or which possess an EOA. Section 10. COV ID-19 National Vacs Indemnity Fund. The COV ID-19 National Vacs Indemnity Fund, which shall be administered by the PhilHealth, is hereby established as a trust fund to compensate any person inoculated through the COV ID-19 vaccination program in case of death, permanent disability, or hospital confinement for any SAE, serious adverse effect, provided that in case of death and permanent disability, PhilHealth is hereby authorized to pay compensation from the indemnity fund. The amount of 500 million pesos is hereby authorized to augment the funds of PhilHealth for this purpose, which shall be sourced from the contingent fund as provided under Republic Act Number 11518 or the General Appropriations Act of 2021. The indemnity fund shall be valid and available for release and disbursement until terminated by the President of the Philippines based on the recommendation of the Permanent Committee which was created under Executive Order Number 292 as 1987, that the purpose for which it has been established has been fulfilled. The permanent committee shall also determine the amount that shall revert to the National Treasury upon its termination. The PhilHealth, in consultation with the DOH, the Department of Finance, the Department of Budget and Management, and the NTF, shall issue the necessary guidelines for planning, administration, and monitoring of the utilization of the fund, including the determination of its sufficiency. For this purpose, the IATF EID shall establish a special task group composed of medical and Vacs experts with proven track record who will be in charge of monitoring the probable adverse effects following immunization from COVID-19. The special task force, the special task group shall promulgate the necessary guidelines on the monitoring, evaluation, investigation, and reporting mechanism to be followed by all LGUs, provided that this section shall be valid and in effect for a period of 5 years from the effectivity of this act or until the government has declared the completion of COVID-19 vaccination program, whichever comes earlier. Section 11. Exemption from the import duties, taxes, and other fees for the procurement, deployment, and administration of GovID Vacs. Beginning January 1, 2021, the procurement, importation, donation, storage, transport, deployment, and administration of GovID 19 Vacs through the GovID 19 vaccination program by the government or any of its political subdivision and by private entities shall be exempted from customs duties, value added tax, excise tax, donor's tax, and other fees, provided that the vax shall not be intended for sale or other commercial use and shall be distributed without consideration from persons to be vaccinated. Section 12. Gov ID 19 Vax in card. Subject to the provisions of Republic Act Number 10173 or the Data Privacy Act of 2012. The DOH shall issue a vaccine card to all persons vaccinated. To fast track the process, the DOH may delegate the processing and issuance of vaccine card to LGUs and private entities subject to guidelines to be promulgated by the DOH. The vaccine card shall contain the following: A. Basic personal information such as full name, present or permanent address, and birth date. B. Manufacturer, brand name, batch number, or other identifier of the COVID 19 vax. Letter C. Date of vaccination. D. Name of the hospital, health center, or health facility where the vaccine was received. Letter E. Name, signature, and license number of the duly licensed physician, nurse, or other health worker administering the vaccine. F. Date of the last RT-PCR testing and the name of the laboratory that conducted the last RT-PCR testing if applicable. G. Such other information which may be determined as necessary by the Secretary of Health or the IATF EID in line with the declared policy of this Act. The issuance of vaccine card is intended to be digital but shall remain accessible through other means such as printed cards. The DOH, through the Department of Information and Communications Technology, shall develop the LGU's based digital system and applications that will meet the objectives of the COV ID 19 vaccination program while maintaining quality, safety, ease of use, and accessibility for all Filipinos, provided that the DOH shall maintain a central database of vaccination and mandate a uniform format for the vaccine card, the contents of which shall be updated accordingly to always conform with globally accepted standards. Provided further that the vaccine card shall not be considered as an additional mandatory requirement for educational, employment, and other similar government transaction purposes. Individuals vaccinated against COV ID 19, as indicated in the vax card shall not be considered immune from COV ID 19 unless otherwise declared by the DOH based on reliable scientific evidence and consensus. No fee shall be collected for the issuance, amendment, or replacement of a vaccine card. The amount needed for the initial implementation shall be charged against available funds for the purpose. Thereafter, such sums as may be necessary for its continued implementation shall be included in the annual General Appropriations Act. The falsification of vax card shall be punishable under Act Number 3185 as amended, otherwise known as the Revised Penal Code. Section 13. Reportorial Procurement, Section 13. Reportorial Requirement and Creation of an Oversight Committee. Upon the effectivity of this Act, the Vax CSR, the DOH, the IATF-EID shall submit a monthly report to Congress on the implementation of the COV ID 19 vaccination program, which shall include agreements made by procuring entities pursuant to this Act, date of delivery, storage, and deployment of vaccines, the number of persons inoculated, and other relevant information as may be required by Congress. For this purpose, Congress shall establish a joint Congressional Oversight Committee composed of 4 members of each House to be appointed by the Senate President and the House Speaker, respectively. The committee shall determine whether the implementation of COV ID 19 vaccination program conforms with the provision of this Act. Section 14. Implementing Rules and Regulations. Within 5 days from the effectivity of this Act, the DOH, the NTF, and the GPPB shall, prior consultation with the Department of the Interior and Local Government, the IATF, EID, and other stakeholders, issue guidelines and applicable procurement rules as may be necessary for effective implementation of this Act. The non-promulgated of the rules and regulations provided under this section shall not prevent the immediate implementation of this Act upon its effectivity. Section 15. Separability Clause. If for any reason, any provision of this Act is declared invalid or unconstitutional, the remaining parts of provision not affected shall remain in full force and effect. Section 16. Repelling Clause. All laws, presidential decrees, executive orders, rules and regulations, or parts thereof, which are contrary or inconsistent with this Act, are hereby repealed, amended, or modified accordingly. Section 17. Effectivity. The effect This act shall take effect immediately upon its publication in a newspaper of general circulation or in the official gazette, and shall remain in full force and effect during the period of the state of calamity as declared under Proclamation Number 1021, dated September 16, 2020, issued by the President of the Philippines. Approved, Lord Alan J. Q. Velasco, Speaker of the House of Representatives. Signed, Vicente C. Soto III, President of the Senate. This act was passed by the Senate of the Philippines as Senate Bill Number 2057 on February 23, 2021, and adopted by the House of Representatives as an amendment to House Bill Number 8648 on February 23, 2021. Signed, Mark Landro Mendoza, Secretary General, House of the Representatives. Signed, Myra Marie Villarica, Secretary of the Senate. Approved, February 26, 2021. Rodrigo Roa Duterte, President of the Philippines. Yan. Office of the President, Malacanang Records Office, certified copy, Attorney Concepcion Ferolino, Director 4. Okay, so ito po yung ating Republic Act 11525. Pagpasensya nyo po, yung ibang words dito is medyo pinabago natin ang pronunciation, pronounce natin to avoid detection. Hope ito'y makatulong sa inyo at ganun din sa akin habang pinapakinggan natin ang pagbabasa nitong RA 11525. Kung wala tayong oras na magbasa at mag-sink in sa isip natin, naway naunawaan ninyo ang aking pagbasa ng full content nitong Republic Act 11525. Thank you.